Okay, so we'll say Mohammed.
Okay, all right.
Please introduce yourself because you have a so long career that I will be very bad at explaining what you did. And
Okay.
I will be comfortable if you explain yourself, your
Sounds
career.
good.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Well, good morning or good afternoon to all of you joining us for this presentation. I'm Dr. Carolina Cruz-Neira, and I'm currently the Aguirre Chair Professor at the University of Central Florida in Orlando, the United States. I'm a member of the National Academy of Engineering, and I got inducted 2 years ago because all my career on doing work in the areas of virtual reality and immersive environments. I started a long time ago when I was a PhD student in the early 1990s, and I developed the technology that is known today as the CAVE, which is a room-based projection environment. And since then, I've been dedicated my career to understand how virtual reality and augmented reality and other forms of XR have applicability in different areas of human life. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit of my sort of experience doing these things, as well as perhaps a little bit of what's coming next in my side of the world. So my first interaction with virtual reality was actually in 1991. A lot of younger generations of VR professionals think that VR started in 2012 when the Oculus Rift appeared, but it actually is a field that has been around probably since the mid to late 60s. And there was a really big wave in the late 80s and early 90s. And that's when I came into the picture. I was a young student. So like everybody else, my first experience was on the summer of 1991 at the conference SIGGRAPH. And I think like everybody else, when I first experienced VR, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is so cool. This is awesome. Oh, this is just unbelievable. I can be here forever and enjoy myself. But then after a while, during the same event, the same conference, the next day I came back and I really start thinking about it. What exactly I'm looking at this? What is it? How can I be helpful? What are people thinking that this technology is gonna do in the future for us? So things that immediately came to mind is that when I was trying all these experiences, I kind of felt very lonely in the space, even though there were some avatars to sort of populate some of the worlds that were representing at that time. It didn't feel like they were people. There was kind of almost like dolls in the environment. So it was a kind of a friendly, lonely space. And I wanted to bring people with me. I wanted to share that experience. I wanted other people to really be in with me. I also felt a little inhibited to move myself freely because I did remember that before donning the VR equipment, there were things in the real world. I remember maybe like in a conference trade show, there were maybe some pieces of the booth, cables, there was other people, there was some chairs. So I was very, very cautiously moving, which also limited my ability to experience the world. And a lot of the applications that I saw, they were more entertaining related applications, which is not a bad thing on its own, of course not. But being more of an applied researcher and an applied engineer, I was thinking, well, what is this really for? What is the point of this technology? Is it only an entertainment technology, or can we take it to other levels where we can do more things with it? So these thoughts, since I was at the time fishing for a PhD thesis, made me to put myself in some kind of mindset that said, well, if I'm going to do a PhD in this area of virtual reality or XR, I really want to do something that brings more of this social, more human component to this technology. And this is also made me think, well, if I'm going to do that, then I asked myself this question, what is VR? And I really encourage all of you to ask that question to yourselves. What do you think VR, AR, and XR are? Because I think that today we look at these technologies very compartmentalized, very separate, and I don't think they are that separate, because when we think of VR, we think on a technology that allow us to create entirely digital worlds. They basically take us away from reality and transport us to some virtual space, whether it is a replication of reality or an imaginary space. When we talk about AR, we talk about some enhancement of our reality through some digital world. So in a sense, superimposing some information or even just beauty and artistic expressions in the real world. But when I ask that question to myself, these things are not really so separate and so rigid one or the other. They really come together, because when I ask that question to myself, I'm trying to figure out, how do I create some sort of digital reality that is going to help those users to do something at the moment that they're trying to do something, and at the level of expectations that meet their expectations of what the digital reality is supposed to do at that particular moment. So really, to me, it's more of a continuum. It's more of a gradient, if you want to call it, because it's about what we're trying to provide as an experience to the users. So in my mind, sometimes when I say VR or I say AR or I say XR, I don't really differentiate too much with them, because it's just what is needed at the moment in the situation that we are in, the type of application that we are, and on the goals and expectations that those users have in that particular environment. And then when I ask this question, then the next thing that comes into my mind is, nowadays in 2020, when we think about VR or AR or XR, immediately our thoughts goes to a headset. And I talk about this in all my talks. Some of you that have heard me talking before, you see that I say this all the time, because, I think we are confusing the concept of what this technology is with the specific implementation that we have today in 2020. So VR is not all about headsets. VR is about really the kind of technologies that allow us to create a digital reality. So if we think about it this way, then I think we can be a lot more innovative, we can be a lot more creative, and I think we can do a lot of progress, perhaps even faster than we're doing it today. This is not to say that headsets is not a good technology. Of course they are. I think it's a wonderful technology and I use it all the time, but it's not the only one. That's my point. We have to have a broader mind for all of us that want to be successful in this technology. And these are the sort of the thinking process that got me to develop the cave quite a number of years ago. So for those of you that are not familiar, I put this video here. So basically, in a sense, the cave is a headset so big that you can get inside it with your own body. So this has, like any technologies, it has very good advantages and some limitations. So on the good side, as you can see in the video, is a system that is very easy to get in and out. You only have to wear the stereo glasses, which are not much more cumbersome than a pair of sunglasses. It's very easy, as you can see, to have a group conversation. You see all the body language, you see the expressions. It's very easy to say, hey, come in here and join us, and everybody can be pointing at the same elements in the virtual space and have a face-to-face discussion. There are some limitations in current implementations of the cave. For example, only one person has the head tracking, so the other observers, depending on how far or how close they are to the person holding the tracking, might have a little distorted view of the environment. There is, of course, the restriction of how much space this takes, whether or not it's portable. So there are issues, but it just came, I think, when I did it. I think the important part of this is also to take into account that it's just a way to expand our minds to consider other implementations of the concept of VR and not really be stuck in a single implementation. You know, I made the analogy, you know, we have cars and motorcycles and airplanes and boats when we do transportation. And that's how we have done progress in being able to move people around the world. If we would have been stuck, the transportation is exclusively a car, that will have limited our ability to travel fast for very long distances. So that's, in my view, that's what we're doing. We're saying, I'm only going to look at cars for transportation. So I don't want to deal with airplanes, or I don't even know that I can build an airplane, and I don't even know I can build a motorcycle or a bicycle or a boat. So we really need to broaden our understanding of what the technology is conceptually and the implementation. Another point of interest, a lot of people sometimes says, well, VR was dead from the 1990s until the Oculus Rift appeared. VR was dead, and it wasn't true. There was a very, very productive and prolific period of time in the 2000s where industry invested in VR, understood the value of VR in many different aspects of their workflows and the product lifecycle. And many companies, from engineering companies to architectural companies, pharmacology companies, groups doing environmental studies, military trainings, and many, many other groups were very, very active using this technology and learning how this technology can be helpful. So there was quite a lot of work. Now, of course, we come to 2012 when the Oculus came up, and we are all super excited now because, of course, now VR has become mainstream, affordable, and very, very easy to use. So it's rare that we go a week without seeing anything in the media, in the press, about VR developments. So, but if we look at the landscape of VR today, this is what we see. We see a very wide diversity of headsets and headset applications, which is wonderful. Again, it's great that we have so many choices, and they all have, in a sense, a good place and a good set of applications to be used. But if we look at this other picture, you know, it's very similar as the VR today. So what happened here? Well, this is the bottom set of pictures is the vision of the field in the late 80s, early 90s. So we have a window of almost 30 years in between that our understanding of the technology doesn't seem to have evolved. And that to me is a little worrisome, because I think we are limiting ourselves on what we can do with this technology. So as we look at this for innovation, so one thing that again worries me is that we are not, sometimes many of the current efforts don't seem to be aware of how much previous work has been done. So this is a pretty loaded slide, but it's a quick summary of my work and the work of many of my collaborators in the last literally 30 years. And you can see some of the images, the graphics are almost laughable today. But, you know, we were doing digital twins in VR and AR, you know, 20 years ago. We were doing immersive data analytics, you know, in 2001 and 2002. We were doing a specialized training. I've been doing a lot of computational steering inside VR. Many of the things that you see, virtual prototyping, collaborative teamwork, and many others, healthcare applications. So there has been quite a lot of this work, and some of it, as you can see, was based in cave technology, and some other was based on headsets and different technologies, even cell phones, even things like tables and workbenches. So again, the widest spectrum of technologies have allowed us to really understand what that can be. And not only in the, let's say, STEM areas, same thing with the arts and the humanities. Something that I like to show often is the two pictures on the top left. This is a project that was done by the Fraunhofer Institute in Darmstadt sometime in the mid to late 90s. So this is a virtual reality experience of visiting the Cathedral of Siena. And it's an incredibly high quality real-time rendering of that monument. But again, this is not something that was done a couple of years ago. This is something that was done literally 20 years ago. So we also did virtual journalism. So the two pictures in the middle with kind of a bluish tint to them, this was a virtual reality experience that was done to document the horrific events of 9/11 in the United States, where we interacted with many survivors of 9/11, and we worked with a lot of the New York officials and the mayor office, and also the first time the emergency responders. And we created an experience that sort of immersively documented 9/11 from the morning prior to the attack, the time of the attack, and also the aftermath, because there was a lot of issues that changed this country and changed many people as a consequence of that. We also have done, for example, VR for theatrical experiences. So the pictures on the right, this is embedding VR in a dance performance. So the props are virtual, the dancers are instrumented. So as the dancers move on the stage, the props change so they can interact. And so there is a very rich performance. And we can do a lot of interesting visual effects for the audience that are, of course, not possible with real props, and things like virtual heritage and so on. So there is a very prolific body of work that happened prior to sort of the consumer VR boom that I think we need to be aware of, because there is a lot of lessons learned in all these experiences. There is a lot of understanding of what works and what doesn't work that I think we can build on top of that and be perhaps even more successful than we are today in the technology. I feel sometimes that the VR market is not really focused on how to truly innovate, how we can really make a strong change in society. Although I think that with the situation that we find ourselves today with COVID-19, I think that has been like a little kick on the tail for all of us, and then try to be really innovative, because clearly VR is one of the wonderful platforms that is allowing us to somehow cope and survive through these periods of social isolation and separation from many of our peers. But in order to create that innovation, we really need to move away of this model of one size fits all, because that doesn't apply very well in VR. We really need to understand when, how, and who is using the technology, and that will have to drive what technology we actually put on the hands of the users. To me, it's very important to always keep the social interactions and the teamwork that maintain the experience. And here are three of my favorite VR applications that really maintain the social interactions in a even simplistic manner. Many of you might be familiar. Oops, let me get the with the virtual bus trip to Mars. I love this project. This is just so exciting. This is a normal United States bus, which the windows of the bus are actual screens. So as the bus is physically driving, in a real city, which could be Orlando or New York or San Francisco, the windows are actually giving the students the illusion that they are driving through Mars. So this is wonderful. This is an immersive experience. It's somewhat interactive because the students have some touch controls in the windows that they can do some things. But as you can see, the students are engaged. The teachers or family members are taking the same kind of pictures they will take when they're on a field trip, you know, and they are fully immersed in the experience. But at the same time, it's somewhat simple way, and it's collective. They are all together. They are not separated. Another one is this one. Sorry. So this is another example where a simple platform can be tremendously effective. So this is just a cell phone on a selfie stick that has the ability to do some AR. So these students are doing their science class in the gym. But look at how all these students are engaged like they normally are. They are all looking at each other, they're laughing, they're pointing at things, they're like, wow, look at this, look at that, and they're doing experiments. What about if I do this? What about if I do that? So it's a very simple platform, but it maintains that kind of interaction and social relationships that we need, especially for the young ones, to develop the ways to be, in a sense, successful with a group of people. Another one, oops, sorry. Another one is this project, which is one of our projects, where we developed an anatomy simulator using a 3D table. So in this one, you can see, for example, an skill or professional anatomy is giving a lesson, or in a sense, a walkthrough the human body to a set of students. And as you can see, they are all looking at the same area. They are having conversations. They are pointing at things. So it's also, again, an environment where those social interactions and relationships are easily maintained. I also think that as we move into the future, we really have to evolve our XR technology to be something that is sort of part of our everyday sort of objects. You know, we all have cell phones and wallets and keys and sunglasses and things that go with us, attached in a sense to our bodies all the time. So I think this technology, we need to get it to a point where it behaves in that way in certain manners. So it's maybe I can have my glasses hanging from my pocket. And if I'm in a moment that I need to do some AR, it's something that I can quickly pull out, put it on, and I don't have to go through a process of started and connected and pressing keys and do weird gestures to get me started. It's something that just sort of goes into my eyes, and I do what I need to do. And when I'm done, I take it, I put it away. So that's, I think that's where innovation needs to really be the biggest breakthrough. How do we make this technology part of our everyday, in a sense, attached to our bodies objects? And I think we need to get to the point to be truly successful. Another area that I'm curious about is how do we keep the focus of attention during an experience, especially a team experience. It's sometimes very hard. I visit a lot of schools and different training centers. And the moment you put VR in somebody's hands, immediately, wow, this is so cool, oh my gosh. And they start looking all over the place, and you're like, no, but you gotta look here. No, but this is where I am. And it's really hard to get that focus, or even it's hard for the teachers or the trainers, or even if you are a professional and you're doing a virtual walkthrough of your design with a customer, it's very difficult to know whether or not the customer is what is supposed to be and looking at the design details that you want that customer to pay attention to. So how are we going to manage that? Some platforms have to some extent, a perhaps easier way to do that, like you can see on the picture on the right. And some other platforms, it might be perhaps something that we can really think about how we can guide that focus of attention through the design of the application. Um, Something that sometimes I feel the industry is not paying attention is at the actual logistics, how the VR systems are being used. Things related to operations, maintenance, even the financials, you know, is it this something imagine a scenario where you have a teacher in a school and it has a classroom with 20 headsets. How is the teacher gonna launch the same application in all those 20 headsets? How is the teacher gonna be somehow confident that all the headsets are launched in the same application and in the same point or state in the application, so he or she can do whatever lesson is prepared? What happens if one of the headsets for whatever reason fails in the middle of a lecture? Now we have one student that is not able to keep up. um, uh, what is my cost if now my school wants to go from a 15 20 students per classroom, now we're going to 30 students per classroom? Is that going to be a linear cost increase or not? So there is all these kinds of issues that I think the industry is not really in a sense thinking too much about that, and we really need to think about that. Another area that we all know is an urgent need to really understand very well what is the long-term exposure effects, especially in the younger ones. You know, we know VR has the potential for motion sickness. We know that it's very individually dependent because we have individuals that are more sensitive to motion sickness and some others that are tolerant. But in addition to motion sickness, is there any other impact that this technology has, perhaps in developmental issues, perhaps on some sort of behavioral traits and other aspects of that? We really need to understand that very well. And of course the eternal dilemma or conversation of content. You know, how do we put the content development on the hands of the people that need to create that content, and not to be so dependent on the application designers and the developers and the creative people. So these to me are the issues that are driving my work today. So, on a nutshell, these are the three major areas where my work is focused. So number one, I'm very interested. How do I bring teamwork and sort of the human social interaction into the VR and XR world? And we again, we're trying to be very platform agnostic on when we do this research. So you can see here two examples. So we are experimenting with different kinds of headsets, like HoloLenses and Varjos and many others. How we can make that teamwork to be co-located, like the one in the picture, as well as remotely located. Because again, with COVID, the remote collaboration has taken a predominant role. And things like the video on the left, where we can maybe create some sort of platforms that are a little simpler for the different types of users to be in and out and interact with each other. And as you can see here is a small test that we did with a group of very young third grade students. And as you can see, they are all engaged and they are talking and they are excited and they are joking with each other, but in the general lines, they are paying attention as they normally would in a class of this nature. And I cut the video, but you hear them, wow, look at that, well, I'm gonna rip off a lung and things like that, but they're all interacting with each other. So that's one of the areas. I'm also very interested in understanding the context in which VR has to be used, and how that context impact not only the technology, but also the way that the applications need to be designed. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then, what other visions for technology we might have past the things that we know already, that maybe we haven't thought about yet. So we're always kind of um, experimenting with some sort of, let's say, contraptions and see if that take us to some way where they might have a reason to exist. So on the social aspects, for example, for many years I had people sending me emails from all over the world. Hey, Carolina, you led the development of the cave, 20 something years ago, but it's very complex and it's very expensive and it's very sort of bolted to the ground. Is there any way that we can look at this technology in a more sort of consumer approach as all the other technologies are going? So we developed something called the VDEN, and I want to spend a lot of time on it. So it's basically the 2020 version of the 1992 version. So it's a much compact system. We incorporated, of course, all my experience using this technology for many, many years, and listening to all the different comments from a lot of people that have been using this technology. So we simplify it. So basically, really, the VDEN is just a really big headset from the perspective of logistics. So it's a single workstation, has a simple SDK that is compatible with all the development engines like Unity and Unreal. It's very portable. So think about camping tent. You kind of squish it together, fit it on a box, put it in the back of your car, take it somewhere, and then you go the other place, kind of pop it up, and you have your system. So we are now starting to investigate sort of whether or not this system is helpful in some manner. On the context of use, here you have a picture that illustrates my thinking. So this picture here is the same application. So from the software perspective, it's the same application. It's an anatomy trainer. However, since I'm a software engineer by training, let's put it that way. So my underlying background is software engineering, but I apply it on the area of virtual reality. Part of our research is what are the software frameworks that we can create so applications can, in a sense, jump from presentation platform to presentation platform. So in this case, this application has different ways to be presented to the user. So we have, for example, a classroom setting. We have on the top middle, we saw the video earlier, we have a small team modality where maybe there is an expert that is showing some procedure to some of the students. We might have maybe on the top right a skilled professional that needs a quick refresh on some anatomical details, so can pull a tablet and quickly get to that point. The bottom middle, for example, could be some students that might have some AR equipment and they are doing some review of the anatomical concepts, maybe prior to a test or something like that. On the lower left, this is maybe a doctor that is having a conversation with a patient while he's also looking at the patient's anatomy to try to explain a process, something that might be wrong in the patient's body. Or maybe in this case, maybe caretakers, family members might also have an AR system and might be looking at this together with the doctor, so the doctor can point and say, look, right here is what the problem is, or right here is where you have to apply the pressure, or this is where you have to do your therapy exercises. And then on the bottom right is perhaps a group of skilled professionals that they are going over a specific patient anatomy prior to perhaps a surgery or something to make sure they understand what everything is. Now, again, the underlying software is the same application, it's just being presented differently depending on the context on which that application needs to be using. So this is part of my current research at the University of Central Florida. So as soon as COVID led us to resume operations, we'll be continue this research and hopefully do release some publications or other materials so people can follow our work. Sometimes people ask me, if I look into the future, what kinds of things we are following. So in addition to my work, I'm keeping a close eye, for example, on the technologies like the top left, the technologies that sort of project or embed the VR in the physical space that the users are, thanks to a lot of the computer vision methods that we have, like SLAM and others. We are able to extract the geometry and other parameters of the real world. So a lot of that information can be then processed, and then virtual or digital realities can then be properly superimposed with the correct alignment and the warping and accommodations for the physical objects. So to me, I feel that this has a future. How the future is going to look like, I'm not sure yet, but I really think that we're going to go into some direction that the physical, the space that we have is going to be enhanced, and it's not necessarily enhanced by us putting equipment on us. That enhancement might come by equipment that is embedded in the space. Because of my tie to kind of room-based VR, I do follow very closely the LED wall technology, as well as the flexible materials. The flexible displays is something that excites me quite a lot. So we are keeping a very close eye on that, as well as technologies, for example, like the potential displays that are embedded on contact lenses. That's another area that sounds to me equally exciting. We are a little far from that yet at this moment, but looking into the future, I think there might be some potentials in there. So to wrap up my my presentation, here are some random thoughts. Like I said, sometimes I feel that maybe we're trying to put products to market too soon. Having been able to leave the first wave of VR in the 1990s and reliving that right now in 2020, sometimes I feel that the same mistakes that were made in the 90s are being made today. And that is a little bit concerning to me. I don't want to be gloomy, but I think that we really need to pay a little more attention to the lessons learned from the first wave to make sure that this wave is here to stay and successful, and all of you that have your wonderful companies and products and applications are truly successful, and you're going to be in my place talking 20 years from now, because that's really what I want. I want all of us to be successful. I sometimes, or a lot actually, as I travel around the world, I see a lot of groups that they're trying to force a problem to the platform that they have in their hands, instead of actually having the problem guiding what type of platforms are we going to use for that. And that is a big mistake. And this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest sources of failure, because there are certain problems that are not good for certain platforms. And when we try to force them, because for whatever reason, maybe it's financial, we can only afford the platform that we have, so everything that we do has to be on that platform, or because we're not aware of our choices. We have a lot of choices in the market today, so let's figure out what those choices are, and if there are choices, maybe some of them might make a little bit more sense. So this is to me one of the biggest deterrents today for this innovation and societal change that I was talking at the beginning of my talk. Little things that I experience sometimes, that all of us VR professionals are not the users. So we think in very different ways about the technology. So what we think it might work or might not work is not necessarily what is really going to work. So make sure that you pay attention to who your end users are going to be, what their locations, situations, resources, long-term infrastructure is going to be, so you can create a good application. big word of caution is so easy today and it's so cool. You know, we can afford the platform, we can afford the software development platform. So a lot of us think that because I can maneuver myself in some of the underlying platforms, I'm automatically I am a VR developer. And a word of caution with that, you know, I always give this analogy. You have a lot of high school kids that can get popsicle sticks and build a wonderful concept for a bridge. Now, that is a high school level bridge. Are we going to have those students replacing the Golden Gate in San Francisco and design the new replacement bridge? I don't think so, because even though they have the general idea of what a bridge is about and how to construct a bridge, they don't have the deep understanding, the deep knowledge, and the experience to create a real bridge that has to support the daily traffic, the weather, and many other parameters. And I think in many situations that I encounter as I interact with groups around the world, we don't have that very clear in VR. And sometimes we tend to trust on the popsicle stick developers when we in reality need real engineers that can build our solution. So that's just another word of caution in there. And then, of course, expectations. We are so excited about technology. We love it, you know, that our imagination just go wild. But we also have to be realistic, because one is our ideas of what this technology is about. And another thing is what we can deliver today in 2020. And sometimes there's a big mismatch between what we talk about and what we can deliver. And for the people that are in our professional circle, sometimes they don't understand that difference. So when we are talking to a customer or a collaborator, we are talking here, but our excitement makes it feel that we're talking here. And when we deliver this and we don't deliver this, then we have very unhappy customers. So we have to be careful, because this was one of the biggest factors that crashed us in the 90s. We were so excited about the technology, and that excitement went into, let's say, the public eye, and the public thought that was what was available at that moment, and it wasn't. So there was a lot of sort of frustration and disenchantment with the technology, and we somehow lost track a little bit of the many things that this technology can enable. But on the oops, that's a different topic. So, but in the overall, I really think that, you know, we are in a perfect moment, because of course all the infrastructure that we need for VR is there now. So I think it's a very exciting time to be a VR professional right now. I think the opportunities are really without limit. Is what we maybe can conceive. So I'm really working very hard, and I love when I get invited to give these talks, because I really want all of us to be successful, especially the younger generations, because I'm slowly turning into an older generation, even though somehow magically my head is still black. There's no white hair on me, but I'm starting to be pushing the edge where I probably need to let all of you younger people take over. So let's do it right. You know, let's get that excitement that we all have into be productive and innovative. But then let's base all these on the things that we already know. So let's understand all this body of work, all these efforts that have been happening in all these many, 20, 30 years, and let's build on top of that, because the time is now. COVID-19 has, even though it's a horrendous situation for humanity, to some extent has given us a platform to even become stronger as professionals in VR. So let's use all these combination of factors of 2020, and let's catapult this technology to a success, like a solid success for a technology that is going to be here from now on. So for now, this is my final slide to give you a vision of diversity. So if anything you take home from my talk today is really this wide range of modalities, platforms, and styles on which VR and AR and XR can be presented to the user. Open your mind to that wide range and really understand where all these things can fit and when all these things can really cause innovation. If any of you have any questions, my email is there, so feel free to reach out to me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolina, Professor. And I have one question for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It's true that many people see VR mostly on the graphic part, but in fact, it's code. And this code, you are talking about that is not just because you are using Unity that you are a VR developer. And this is something you see it, I see it myself when I try some indie games or something. The code is not really clean, and you have many bugs in VR, and for me this is very dangerous for the future of this technology. The time to market is too short, and people the trend is that many people try to quickly put the things in the market without any testing process. And we have this thing that you start using the thing, it crashes and or it lags, and the lagging is so bad with VR headset that. So I don't know what you think about it. Should we put more effort on training VR developer in coding, or there's another way to change this?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's related to what I said earlier. Because it's affordable, because it's very, in a sense, easy to get your hands on it. There are many people that are doing VR applications without having the VR training. And that is a big issue, because as you say, there are applications that go out there that are not robust because they are not engineering the software. They are not going through the strict protocols of creating a robust and sustaining product. On top of that, there is also VR it connects directly to our human senses. It connects primarily to our vision and our audio, but some applications might include also other senses like tactile or force or some other bio-related sensors. So in addition to the rigor in which the software and the hardware and the overall technology infrastructure has to be properly developed, properly tested, properly refined, then we have another layer of robustness, which is how is this product, this application, this piece of hardware is going to affect our ability to function. Is it going to make our users dizzy? Is it going to condition our users to operate in a virtual space which is a little bit off with reality? So when they return from the virtual space into the real world, are they going to be able to operate in the real world? What's going to happen is there any difference from spending 10 minutes, an hour, or 5 hours inside the virtual space? And a lot of that, as you say, it hasn't been, we don't have an established protocol on how all this has to do. And I think, like all the emerging technologies, I was giving another talk yesterday, and I was sort of, perhaps a little too dramatic, but somehow parallel to the, when radioactive materials were discovered, they were happily, to some extent, managed by people, and people could buy radioactive materials very easily. And there were a lot of products using radioactive materials. As we learn more about radioactivity, Now there are protocols in place and restrictions and all those kinds of things. Obviously in VR it's not going to be that dramatic, but I think we are on very early stages in this technology. But I think as we move into the future, we are going to have more standardized protocols on how these products are deployed into the market. And we might have to have some metrics on which they have to be, some metrics and standards that are going to have to be met before they are allowed to go to the market. And there are certain groups that I'm involved with that we are discussing these issues and how do we develop. There are some standards that are starting to appear on for example, what are interaction standards, but I think we need to go a step forward on these issues, on the robustness of the infrastructure, as well as the robustness of the experience with the users.
I don't know if someone have a question. I have a lot of questions for you, Professor. There is a question from the participant. No? Professor, sorry, Dragon, you are mute.
Yeah, I cannot hear you, sorry. I see you talking, but I don't hear you.
Unmute. Okay.
Okay, I hear you now.
Okay, excellent. So first of all, thank you so much. It's sharing all these things. It's a lot of super interesting things. There's just so many things that I'm thinking very much into similar direction, and why people are using these, different technologies without thinking too much. And you were also so right that usually people just grab technology, but they don't have a formal background about none of the arts or crafts, related to it. Like imagine that people would just grab a camera and they don't know anything about photography. So today, lots and lots of companies develop, technologies without knowing about stereoscopic vision, about things. So my question is, it's always difficult to generate innovation and to produce something like what you were doing all these years. So what was your framework? You had a constant team, or you were managing to go from institution to institution, or you had a single company during all these years?
A little bit of all, of course, when I first started, when I did the cave, it was pretty much just me, because it was my PhD thesis. I had, of course, my two advisors, Don DeFanti and Dan Sandin from the University of Illinois at Chicago, that of course they were, in a sense, safety boards where I could have some conversations with them whenever I got stuck on something. But a lot of the work, both the actual hardware and software, that was just by myself. So I had to learn how to do a lot of the hardware related things, from simple soldering circuitry boards, to welding the structure, the frames and things like that. But I think like everybody else, as my professional life progressed over the years, I started having teams. So I started my career in Iowa State University as a postdoctoral fellow. But, a couple of years later, I proposed some ideas to the university about creating a center, and I became the associate director of that center. So at that time, I had a small team of full-time professionals and a lot of PhD students and master's students and undergraduate students. And same thing in some of the other university locations where I have been, like here at UCF, for example. Between me and my husband, we have a team of about 13 students, ranging from freshman, sophomore undergraduate students all the way to PhDs. And we are about to have a couple of postdoctoral fellows joining our teams. In some parts of my life, I walked away from the academic world to do some startups. So those startups, some of them were successful, some of them didn't make it. That's the tough reality of the startups. So two of them, one of them is still operational today. The other one was acquired by a larger corporation, and same thing under those structures. There was some team that we did things as a group. Many times we collaborate with other groups. So especially when we collaborate with industry, they have their own team. So it's more of a side-by-side collaboration where we do some of the perhaps more deep science components of the collaboration, and the industry partners do more of the practical aspects of the collaborations. So I think it's a little bit of things. Before I have children, I will have time to even fiddle with things again by myself. So there was a lot of individual fiddling that I was able to do. At this moment, unfortunately, I don't have much of my own time anymore, between family obligations and more sort of senior responsibilities, administrative type of responsibilities. So, but I think for everybody out there that is listening to us today, the number one issue is to have passion. You have to really like this. This is a very broad set of skills that you need to acquire to be successful in VR. You have to be a very technical person. You have to be creative. You have to know a little bit about cognitive science and psychology and human behavior. And you have to also know a little bit the discipline domain where ultimately your work is going to be deployed in. So you have to have a passion and a drive where you want to fiddle, you want to experiment, you want to do things. And experimenting is great, and I love that the technology is so accessible, because I really think that all these experimentations that we're all doing is going to bring the innovation. But I think there is some confusion today between experimenting with the technology and deploy that experiment as a product. Experimentation is key. What we are all doing is going to take us to innovation. All the applications, all the technology we are developing, all the things that we are doing. However, many of those are experiments, are getting our hands into this. They are not products. And unfortunately, like I said, some of them come out as products. That's what we need to understand today, 2020.
Okay. Thank you very much, Karuna. The next speaker, I'm sure that both you can talk